Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome back to the Cornwall Property Podcast. This is episode 33 with the market updates. I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And we're here to inform, educate and inspire you guys to get involved with property, and with a particular emphasis of the Cornwall property market.
Absolutely, and thank you for all your lovely feedback that you give the podcast here. And remember how you can do that is by going to cornwallpropertypodcast.com. On our front page there, scroll down to the very bottom and you can send us a message that way. But as many of you do, please keep on contacting us through social media on Facebook.
Definitely. So this is our market update episode. So we will literally bring you topical news stories that have caught our eye and we think should be well worth listening to and understanding. And then we are going to be picking our property picks of the week. So myself, Dan, I will pick a commercial property that's currently on the market and vacant in Cornwall, and James will have a residential. And the aim is that we want to try and encourage you guys to get involved with property. And we know that there's a Cornwall housing crisis at the minute. There's not enough residential property for Cornish people. So we're trying to find these opportunities where we can bring more property back to the Cornish market and also hopefully make a bit of money at the same time.
Absolutely, and although we, try to bring our opportunities that we find, if you guys ever find opportunities that you think would be good for our listeners and viewers, then send them in to us and we can certainly feature them on the show, because there is a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to go hunting for it.
For sure, definitely. Right, I'll go kick us off. I have got a juicy topic today, and again, all of these articles are the show notes. If you go onto the show notes, whatever medium you are watching or listening to this podcast on the show notes you will have the link to the articles so you can read them in full, but we're going to obviously digest just parts of it. But this article that really caught my eye is on landlordstoday.co.uk. Really good topical website, that one. So the one that I caught my eye, so I'm looking at how the NRLA, so the National Residential Landlords Association, is kind of identifying the key concerns or key messages that they're trying to really bang the drum for. Now, obviously, we've got a bit of a stagnant with the Conservative Party at the minute. We're looking for a new leader. There's going to be a new Prime Minister, but at the moment is probably a good time for them to start trying to campaign. This is the NRLA, this is, to get the new leaders on the side that we want them to be on. So 5 points the NRLA are trying to highlight that they want the government to really be aware of since they've made changes. But let me just go into it a little bit more depth. So the issues that they're doing, so since the white paper was outlined recently by Mr. Gove and also in Prince Charles's Queen's speech, so they've got big plans for big changes to the residential rental and private rental market. These are probably some of the biggest changes to the private rental sector in over 30 years. So with these changes now, people are starting to kind of digest it, really take it in and think long term, like how are these changes potentially going to fare in real life situations. So the 5 areas that the NRLA have pointed out here and they want to campaign is they want to first and foremost put an end to the anti-landlord rhetoric. So they're seeing that a lot of ear bashing is happening for landlords, a lot of bad talking and slander is happening for landlords, but on the whole, it's not all landlords. There's landlords that, like ourselves, we value that we want to offer great quality products, homes for our tenants. But there are, unfortunately, some that don't, and they're just in it to make a quick buck, and they don't care, and they put in unsafe properties. But what the NRLA are saying, they want to see more backing given to the majority of landlords that do provide good quality homes, and stop slandering the landlords as a whole, as a stereotype, because it's not fair. So former ministers in the Department of Levelling Up and Housing Communities for some months have been outspoken in their criticism to landlords. So remarkably, they're failing to counter the criticism. So they just want to even it up. It's not all landlords. So they're trying to just get this kind of stigma that landlords are bad people, because it's not the case. People are trying to, like ourselves, I really do put it out there, that we trying to do the good things. We trying to make the properties that we want to live in as well. So
absolutely,
that's something I think is a really key one, and is a big and first and foremost one, which I'm pleased that they put on there. The second issue that they want to look at is the concerns over the indefinite tenancies. So at the moment, we would offer a tenant, say a 6-month term in a property, or you might go 12-month or 20-month, 4-month. You've got a fixed term contract. And normally at the end of that term contract, you then go on to like a 1-month rolling contract usually. But what the government are saying in this white paper is that they don't want termed contracts, they want indefinite contracts. So from day one, you go on to a rolling contract. So it gives the tenant more flexibility, and and it just makes it a little bit more risky for the landlord, I suppose. But the issues that they've raised is actually looking at the student market. So the student market could potentially be an issue with this new regulation or new policy. So as part of the Fairer Private Rental Sector White Paper, the government proposes periodic tenancies, as I say. But what this does is it's giving tenants the ability to leave a property or a contract early if the property isn't up to standard or is in a poor condition. But the proposals have raised alarm bells for the student sector because obviously they're only set times and they only want to be accommodation for certain periods. So they're just saying that this needs to be thought out a little bit more. Instead of it being general, maybe it could be a bit more specific in areas. So that's the second concern. A third one, areas of concern, firm principles to support landlords to tackle antisocial behaviour. Now, as we know, it's kind of linked in with the fourth as well. So they want more support for landlords where there's antisocial behaviour happening in their properties because there's not a lot that landlords can do. Now, at the moment, you could issue a Section 21 to evict your tenant as well. But with Section 21 now looking to be abolished, so again, for those that aren't familiar, Section 21 is a no-fault eviction. If, say, for example, a landlord wants to sell their property, then they would issue. So James was my tenant. I said, James, look, unfortunately, I'm going to need to sell the property, and as a result, you're going to need to move out, I'm afraid. So I'm going to issue a notice, Section 21 notice, which means that I'm serving notice at no fault of your own, you're being evicted from your home. So what this new policy is going to be doing is like, I can't do that any longer. So they want to see the policies beefed up really for protection of landlords as well, so that they can still have some control on their properties, which I think is fair. I think it's right, but obviously you do need that even balance. But at the moment, it seems very one-sided at the minute, isn't it? Agreed. With regards to where all these new policies are going. But if you look at it as well, there's far more renters than there are landlords in the country. So where the vote's going to be coming from, I suppose. But again, so a concern from the NRLA, they've got concerns over the scrapping of Section 21 eviction powers. They've not been balanced and sufficient beefing up, they've claimed, of eviction powers is not being seen. There's still massive court delays at the minute, and as a result, there's long-term losses for landlords. So if you've got a tenant is not paying their rent, you want to evict that tenant, but because there's such a long backlog and delay in the courts at the minute, you could be with that tenant for probably 6 to 12 months still not paying rent before you can actually get an eviction notice. So again, they just want to get some more beefy regulations and rules in there to help support the landlords, which I don't disagree with, if I'm entirely honest. And then the final one, they want to encourage the creation of a new property portal for landlords. So it's been widely talked about. They want to make a landlord register. Again, I think there's pros and cons to this. Pros being, you can find out lots about the landlords, you can find out what properties they own, and it's a lot more data to be stored. But are all landlords going to sign up? Because I guarantee it's going to be the good ones that do, because they buy and they do things by the book, like ourselves, we'd be signing up. But the whole point in this is to try and get the bad landlords and catch them and find out a little bit more what's happening, and with them on a register, then we can have a bit more control over them, I'm sure. But are they necessarily going to sign up? So these are just things that obviously that the NRLA have highlighted as concerns, and I think do need to be thought about really. Interesting times with the Conservative government the way it is, but there's some valid points in there, I feel. Again, Section 21 has been abolished. There needs to be a way for a landlord to be able to get control of their property. It's just there could be real severe circumstances where the landlord needs their property back for their own personal reasons. So I think it's just so important that they can have that control. And any of those that really stick out for you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good find there, Dan, and you've sort of laid it out in a good way. And yes, we're seeing some big shifts in government at the moment. Obviously, we're a new person will be running the country come September. But with regards to the changing of the housing policies, I think this was inevitable. It was always coming. They've been talking about it for so long, and I think you're right. This is the biggest shake-up in the last 30 years. But I also think the housing market's got to a point in its life where it does need a big shake-up. I think for me, it's mainly positive. I think it's good not only for the landlord because it protects the landlord. I think it's also good for the tenant as well because it protects them. But my only fear with this is, let's look at Cornwall, because we're the Cornwall Property Podcast, is that are these rules and regulations coming in going to be a deterrent or making the landlord fearful? God, all this hassle, all these new regulations, is it just really worth renting out anymore? So if we take on board all the rental properties that are available for rent at the moment, if those landlords think, I can't be doing with this anymore, and they start selling it, but yet we've got the Cornwall housing crisis where people still can't afford to buy. Even if lots of stock comes on, the price comes down even a little bit after the jumps we've had in Cornwall with the pandemic, they still can't afford to buy. But if no landlords are buying those properties to actually create the rentals, then we're going in a negative direction. You're going to have even more properties that are empty. But I think obviously nothing's set in stone. It's just they're waiting for things to be finalised and what they're going to bring to the table. And I think the landlords will and should speak up and help guide the government with what is a reasonable balance to keep the tenants and the landlords protected, but also be realistic. So you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot and create more demand for housing when no one's buying anything. If you know what I mean.
No, you're bang on. And there was actually an article I didn't select for today, but that was one of the topics. Is all these new regulations are now starting to deter. And I think actually, if you keep reading that article in the full, again, the link is on the show notes. That's something they mention is these issues are going to start deterring landlords, and they are deterring landlords. People are selling up as a result. Section 24 with the whole tax issue with it. Again, we can go into that a bit more detail, but that was one of the key reasons for old school landlords who aren't kind of geared the way newer landlords are now with regards to tax and things. That it was the first deterrent for landlords to start exiting the market. But all these new regulations and things are another way. And obviously with the Airbnb sort of thing, they're likely to be putting rules and regs in for that now. Yeah. That again could be a further deterrent. I suppose on the contrary, you could argue with landlords selling up. The issue we've got in Cornwall, for example, is there's not enough stock housing. So there's not enough available property. Yeah. So if the landlords are exiting, it obviously releases stock, but your argument then also was that, well, people can't afford the stock as it is.
Even if it came down by 20%, they still can't afford it. That's the point. They need to rent. But if landlords aren't renting, then, is that good or is that bad?
I suppose you can argue how much, it depends how much comes on. I can't see it being a big enough impact, but you could say, if there's more stock, then the price will be driven down a little bit, but it's not going to be, there's still a big difference.
And there's still a huge waiting list, and that's my concern with it. And, these rules could be pretty stringent, but it's also not to forget what we've talked about in previous episodes is all the EPC stuff coming in. If that wasn't bad enough for landlords having to dip in their pockets by, 5, 10, 15,000 pounds to bring EPC by upgrading external walls, for example, these are heavy refurbs or upgrades that landlords just don't have the money. They might just think, do you know what, let's just sell and get out. But definitely. Time will tell. But some really good points there, Dan.
What have you got for us?
So, obviously I try to gear things towards the financials, but also try to see other stories as well. But my first headline is really looking at the fixed rates, really. So I found an article on mortgagestrategy.co.uk and the specific article here was from Moneyfacts, and the headline was "Fixed rates continue to increase at record pace." Well, I don't think we've got any surprise there with previous podcasts that we've been talking about. I mean, it's never ending with the Bank of England raising the interest rates, but the article goes on to say, as providers continue to revise and reprice their product ranges, the average overall 2 and 5 year rates have increased sharply this month, which was the same as last month as well. Yeah. According to the latest data from Moneyfacts, the latest Moneyfacts UK Mortgage Trends Treasury report shows that both had experienced the largest month-on-month rise rates since 2007, since when the last recession was, and it's not slowing down. Mm-hmm. The average overall 2 year fixed has risen for a 9th consecutive month, which is now at 3.74%, which is massive. We're not talking about buy-to-let rates here, where this is personal stuff. And only 2.5 months ago, we were looking, at the sort of 1.6 to 1.9 rates. So it is a huge difference.
Secure your rate as quick as you can.
Yeah, as we always say. And then at 3.89%, the overall 5 year fixed rate has also risen for a 9th successive month and is its highest again on Moneyfacts since November 2014, when it hit a record of 3.93%. But that's still flying up, even on the 5 year ones, and people are still locking in those deals because they're fearful that, are we going to see personal mortgages start dipping into the 5% mark, which, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. And finally, on the article, it said, we've seen some providers pull selected products, with others which have withdrawn the whole sectors of, or indeed their entire ranges, from the market temporarily. Compared to last month, total availability has reduced by a notable 431 deals that have left the mortgage sector. Now, that's not necessarily leaving you for lack of choice. There's still 4,556 products, but the reason those products have been taken away is because they were really, really juicy deals where you could sign up for 5 years at under the 3% mark for your personal mortgages. So, of course, everybody was jumping on that sort of opportunity for cheap lending. But the mortgage companies have literally just kind of wet themselves, and they've said, no, because the base rates have been climbed, we've got to pull all those products. And I've actually spoken with a few people that I know that were so excited to get their mortgage rates and secure their first deal, but their property purchases for their first time buyers are falling out of bed because the rates just don't stack now with their income. And the mortgage companies have pulled the products from right under them. So I think it's quite a scary time. And like I said earlier, we're not even talking about buy-to-let rates. They are live. I mean, Dan and I are looking at mortgage exit deals at the moment on 5-year fix, and we are going north of 5%. I see that as even another deterrent for landlords to be thinking on top of it, all the legislation, the EPC.
Cash flow, isn't it?
It is. I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, where's it going to end?
Well, we've got our example here. We've got projects going on. We're just about to mortgage one of our projects. So as you know, we buy, for those that listen and follow us, we buy projects with cash, with our investors' finance. We give them a healthy return. We then develop it with the investor money as well. And at the back end, we then put a mortgage on. So we've actually just come to the end of one of our developments, and we had a mortgage kind of terms were outlaid to us on the Tuesday. Then come Friday, we went to say, we'll take that one. Unfortunately, boys, it's been pulled. This is now your best option. And it had gone from like 3 point, because we were buying a limited company and it was a very bespoke type of property. It was like a 3.85% mortgage. It's all of us. Now, was it that much? Yeah. It was about 3.85%, and it went up to 4.9%, wasn't it? Ended up going for.
Which over the time period is astronomical. We're talking thousands of pounds worth.
Mad.
And again,
again, it's a very unique property in terms of there was very limited lending anyway, hence why it's quite high. But still, those sort of differences on the same property is crazy. And it literally has a space of 3 days.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what's the advice? Secure what you can as quick as possible, because it's only going to go up.
Yeah, exactly that. And the reports go on to say that, by the end of this year, we could be, even looking at 6%. So as Dan says, get it locked in ASAP. So
definitely.
Moving on to another headline, again, that I found on mortgagestrategy.co.uk, was from the Nottingham Building Society. And this isn't just for Cornwall, this is national, and quite a scary figure now on the holiday lets. But holiday let purchase plans for now 1 in 10 of property purchases, which is quite a lot, actually. Report went on to say nearly 1 in 10 UK adults are considering purchasing a holiday let in the next 5 years, research commissioned by the Nottingham Building Society. The survey of 1,470 adults was carried out by Consumer Intelligence on behalf of the lender, and further showed 21% are open to the idea of purchasing a holiday let. I don't think that's really any surprise, just with the pandemic and the staycations. I think people are kind of realising that, it's quite a good idea to have a holiday let somewhere else that they can go to, and they'll save some money in the long run. Although people are going abroad at the moment, I've seen lots of people saying that, God, the flights are expensive at the moment. And with the conflict that's going on in Ukraine at the moment, with Russia, we all know fuel prices are painfully high at the moment. They've not been coming down. So what does that mean for aviation? Fuel prices are still high, so those flight prices have gone up as well. But the point I'm making is more and more people are still staying at home, although they can go abroad. They're choosing not to because how expensive it is to, logistically get to those holiday destinations. Also, going on with the report, it said over half, 52% of those that were surveyed who own UK holiday let properties say they bought them in the past 2 years, while of those who plans to purchase them, 67% said that they would go on holiday there every year. And that just backs up exactly what I'm saying, that people are just, wanting to stay at home. 1 in 10% say buying a holiday let to permanently live in one day is in their plans for retirement, while 56% say that they would consider one to buy. So I don't think it's just the pandemic, but because people have been doing a lot more staycation, they've maybe gone to new places that they wouldn't normally go to. And I've spoken to people in Cornwall that have done that. They're thinking, well, now we've tried it, I think we actually would like to move and have retirement down here. So finally, I just end on this. The majority, 84% of those surveyed who already own a holiday let, said that they made more income than in 2021 than 2020, with nearly a quarter, 23%, estimating income was 30% higher.
Yeah, we're in a peak blooming COVID. Of course, you've been did.
Absolutely.
I think this is a very kind of it's a great, interesting article. At the same time, I think it's definitely one that it's a hooker, isn't it? Because there's a lot of considering. People are it's one of those. There's no kind of real definite facts there. No way, 100%. Sorry, I mean, like, people, of course, they're going to consider, but are they actually in a position to proceed on these sort of things? So, no, some interesting numbers. I'm kind of like, but it's again, that last one was, well, yeah, of course they have, haven't they? 2020, of course you've got 30% higher income. Well, we're all closed and locked down in 2020 because we're at the peak of COVID, weren't we?
Absolutely. Everybody knows, the Airbnb jump, and I definitely know figures, certainly in Porthleven, because it's not far from where I live. I was reading an article on that. And back in 2019, there was 36 Airbnbs in Porthleven, down in West Cornwall, and now there's 285, wow. Which, I mean, it's only a small little village anyway.
Mad, isn't it?
It's becoming very, very popular. Arguably, people are saying, but this is all part of Padstow, but what it is. And I was having another conversation with somebody the other day, and I'll end on this, that was quite interesting, that a lot of people are saying with the Airbnb market, yeah, I know it is taking up houses, and I'm not saying I agree with this or disagree with it, but a lot of the holiday lets that are being taken up, they are on coastal areas, places like Rock, places like Porthleven, places like Porthtown, etc., etc. They're not actually the inner towns, or cities where we've got Truro, we've got Helston, we've got St Austell, places like that. That isn't actually where the Airbnbs are being taken up, which I thought was quite interesting, actually, because I know, I'm not saying Airbnb is right or wrong, but it gets a lot of bad press. But most people are looking to live within Cornwall, especially locals. They're not actually looking to live on the coast. They're looking to live in the areas where there aren't any holiday lets. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And I think a big key one is, what's the problem? We haven't got enough housing. Well, how do we fix it? Get more housing. It's not necessarily saying that the buildings we have in Cornwall are going to suffice. No, we need to develop.
100%.
And we just need to face that fact and that reality, really. But that's a story for another day. And if you've got any comments on that, please, we'd love to hear you. And if that's fires you up at all, by all means, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and get you involved in the podcast. But this part now, we're going to move on. We're going to show you our 2 properties of the week. So Dan, I have got for you all now a commercial property that is on the market. Currently on the market, it is on the market with Charterwood. It's based down in Penzance. It is a commercial office. Actually, it's over 2 floors. It's offices. It's in a great location, very popular location of Morab Road in Penzance. I personally don't know Penzance too well, but I'm informed from the advert that it is a very desired residential location. But what I like about this is it's commercial offices, but it has scope to quite easily be converted over to residential. As those who follow James and I closely know, we are very, very big fans of Grade 2 listed buildings. And this is a Grade 2 listed building. Again, great features, period, beautiful pillars on the entrance. So yeah, really nice located. It's a corner property as well. Again, sort of size, you're probably looking at 2 apartments really in this. You could convert this into 2 apartments. Offers in the region of 190,000. So yeah, I think it could be a nice little opportunity there. So if you can see this on the YouTube videos, you can see the photos and you can see the advert live. If you can't see the advert and you're listening, if you go on the show notes, there's a link to the advert and the photos on the show notes. James, what are your thoughts?
Very nice. I think there's a good, decent amount of space. And I do know Morab Road. It's not a bad road at all. And I think it would, create some homes and for somebody to live. That's all we need to do, isn't it? And the space is there. I think you could get something quite decent in there and add some value.
Definitely. So, and things to bear in mind if you are interested in commercial properties is making sure that they're not subject to VAT. So you want to make sure that then you're not going to be charged VAT on the purchase price. So as this advert clearly says, it says, we understand no election to tax has been made and subsequently there'll be no VAT payable on the sale price. So that's obviously great news because it's not an additional figure you need to account for. Also, obviously, I can see from these pictures it looks like it's a used office. So first thing I need to see is, well, can I have it in vacant possession? Because on the headlines it says, offered subject to a new 3-year lease. So do you want to take it on now? Because it might be that you have to continue with the lease. But doing some diggings, having spoken to the agent, they've said that the property is also available on an immediate vacant possession as well, which is encouraging. That would be, if the development way was the preference, then you'd obviously want that vacant. Planning, it might be that you keep the tenants in there whilst planning goes in, but obviously your risk is a bit risky then, but I don't think you'd have any issues personally in converting that to residential with the road it's on, and it was obviously residential once upon a time.
Absolutely. As always do your due diligence and homework on these properties for sure.
100%. James, what you got for us?
So I have managed to find a nice 1-bedroom flat that's got a great opportunity for redevelopment and refurb. It's on with Auction House. It's going to auction on the 19th of July at 12 noon, and it's 5 Park Avenue in St Ives. And for those of you who are watching this or hearing about it, it's in a very central location.
Beautiful views.
Very, very good. And it's got probably one of the biggest attributes ever, which is that it's actually got an allocated parking space, which is just, that's worth gold in St Ives, especially just because there's such a lack of it. But definitely scope here to add a lot of value, I would say, from my experience knowing that area, not living too far away. 165 is definitely the hook price. I think that apartment there in that position with parking would go for a lot more than that. That's just being honest. But I think it would make a really good home for somebody to live in who works in St Ives. I think you've got the beauty of it having the second homes protection, so it can't be a holiday let, which will be good. So this could create a lovely 1-bed flat for somebody to rent out or live. Dan, thoughts?
First thing I need to bear, lovely, looks beautiful. Thing to bear in mind is obviously size of the flat. So generally speaking, it's harder the smaller the flat, the harder it is to mortgage. So I'd definitely be looking at, because on the floor plans, if you zoom in at the bottom of the floor plans and you're watching this, you can see here that the total floor area is 364 square foot or 33.8 square meters. So it's it looks like a decent flat, nice size flat, but to bear in mind that is actually smaller than like new flat requirements would be needed to be. So it'd be worth just double checking with your lender. This is the square meterage of this flat. Are you happy to lend on those bases? If you've obviously got a lender, if you're buying cash, then that's not an issue at all. But it does obviously limit your exits if you were looking to flip it or so what. But again, as always, do your due diligence, get around there, view it. There's a nice little video tour on the link as well. So yeah, nice find. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Excellent stuff. Well, look, guys, that is it from us today. Thank you so much again for joining us. Hope you have enjoyed that and got some value. And please do get in touch if you want to got any questions for us, really.
Absolutely. Log on to cornwallpropertypodcast.com onto our front page there and send us a message and reach out to us on socials, on Facebook especially, and just let us know your thoughts. Ask any questions you like. We love property and we love solving this housing crisis problem together. You are the solution.
That's it. Until next time. So bye from me.
Bye-bye from me.